bigger one.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Dan Craig. I'm the president of Golden Speakers Toastmasters. We're here for our regular Tuesday night meeting. We meet every Tuesday at Fairfield Business Park from 7:45 to 9 o'clock. We're going to first think about our devices in our pockets. Let's go ahead and put them on silent for the duration of the meeting. Wouldn't mind. And I'm going to read the mission of a Toastmasters Club to get us started. The mission of a Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. Let's hear it for the mission. And I'm glad to see that we have two guests tonight. Randy's been here a number of times before. Why don't you stand up and tell us why you came out tonight?
I came out tonight because it's my last chance. I came here, I've been here a few months trying to get here, but I'm leaving for Bali on Tuesday morning, so last time.
Why don't you stay here instead of going to Bali?
I already set it up with them.
No, it's too bad.
Expecting it.
All right, thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
And then could you please stand and introduce yourself?
Kanan Rice, and I'm here because I was told earlier, late last week, that I have to give a speech for work in Mexico in Spanish. Yeah. So it adds an extra layer of fear.
Okay, that's what we like. Fear. Keenan, we have part of our meeting every time, which is table topics, we call it. It's speaking without knowing in advance what you're going to speak about.
Okay.
And guests are always welcome to join in that. So if you want to stand up and try that tonight, that'll get your feet wet a little bit.
All right.
So I encourage you to do that. Our Toastmaster tonight just so happens to be Jean Symington Craig. Let's welcome Jean to the lectern.
Thank you, Mr. President. So a little bit of housekeeping. I do have a completed form of evaluation that you need.
Great.
So
Definitely
Veda could,
look at that.
when we ask you to read the objectives, you could just, read the objectives. He's doing that second speech, applying the, information, and then you could just jot down on a page, what he excelled at.
Okay, great.
So this is mine, but you can come back and you can use it as a template.
Okay, that would be helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. President. Let's go ahead and introduce our role players. Our first role player is our timer, Carmen Antacona. Would you please tell us about your role?
I'm gonna be the timer for today. Today the table topics are gonna have from 1 to 2 minutes. The green line is gonna be turned on at 1 minute. The yellow one at 1 minute 30 seconds. And the red one is gonna be turned on at 2 minutes. There is one prepared speech which is from 5 to 7 minutes. The green light could be turned on at 5 minutes. The yellow light would be turned on at 6 minutes, and the red one turned on at 7 minutes. And there is always 30 seconds to finish the whole speech. The evaluations are going to be 3 minutes. The green light is going to be turned on at 2, the yellow one at 2 and 30 seconds, and the red light at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm going to give my report at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. So Kanan, here's this thing, clapping. Okay, so we don't want you to get like too worked up if you get kind of warm in here, but but you'll see us all clapping all the time.
Okay.
And so that's just part of it, so you can just follow, you know, the head clappers. And
Right.
it makes everybody feel good. Right, Randy?
Yes, so.
Yes, you've been here before, you've gotten
I
up.
have, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone who's clapping disabled can use this device.
Yes, clapping disabled can use this. I have used that. Yes, Beta's contribution. All right, our grammarian. Beta, do you have a word for us? Uh-huh, you didn't know you had two hats tonight, huh?
I knew, but I didn't get it.
Okay, so why don't I come back to you and you think of your word and we put
Yes.
it up, okay? The odd counter is me. My job as the odd counter is to count filler words, words that we do not want to have in our speech. Words like you know, there's one that's there's one that's like, well, so, now, tongue clicks, Xeroxes, when you start a sentence like that, kind of stumble. I'll be keeping a record of those and I will give a report at the end of the meeting. Yay, odd counter. Our general evaluator will be Adi, and we'll hear from him later in the meeting. And then our joke master is going to be D, Stuffer. And we'll hear from him also in the meeting, later in the meeting as well. Adi, you know that as general evaluator in this club, your main job is to evaluate the evaluators. Okay, so it's an extra little bit of a head wrinkle for you there. Okay, Adi's a new member. He's actually a Toastmaster from Jordan, so he's here visiting, so he knows a little bit what he's doing, yeah. All right, let's move on to, yes,
A word. I have the,
okay, okay,
okay, so,
what's the word?
yes. So as grammarian, I will be listening for both proper and improper usage, as in outstanding or improper usage of grammar, and I'll be giving the word of the day. The word of the day is disingenuous. Disingenuous. I'm writing on the board. Disingenuous is an adjective that means not straightforward, insincere, or calculating. It means pretending to be unaware, or being unaware or uninformed.
Okay. Okay, so the goal here is to try to use that word at some point in the evening.
The red one works. Maybe the smaller red one.
Data, actually, we're gonna have to get you up here to read Dan's objectives, so. Is it D-I-S-E or is it D-I-S-I? Yeah, good. And
Okay.
no. You've got, I think, all the consonants, but they're not all in the right order, you know.
You else,
Yeah, I think you should just, yeah.
Someone else want to work on it? Here's the.
Jen, you,
I'll
what?
work on it.
You wanna try it?
You work
Janet?
on it, there's
Janet,
another
I think
pen.
that smaller red marker is the one that has the juice in
Okay,
it.
great.
Okay.
I will
I
do
know, I'm
that.
trying to write it under pressure, all right. So now we are going to move to the prepared speech portion of our meeting. To read the objectives for our speaker, Dan Craig's speech tonight is his evaluator, Beta Royale.
The purpose of this project is to present a speech on any topic, receive feedback, and apply the feedback to a second speech. Dan will be giving his third speech, which is the second speech in the series. The first speech was given last time, and he gave his speech the last time, and we listened intently. It was a great speech, and it went over time. So he's back to do it a second time. So people will be listening to how well organized it is, what style of speech it is, and just in general, his clarity of speech, his eye contact, his gestures, audience awareness, comfort level, and how much interest it provides to the audience. So I'll be turning the lectern back to the Toastmaster to introduce Dan's speech.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you have a couple of points that you gave in your evaluation that you're gonna be looking for him to apply in his current speech? Over and above those general criteria, because that's what we're looking, or you're prepared to.
The main suggestions were vocal variety and a better conclusion,
Okay,
and not to go over time.
okay. So that's what Dan is gonna be applying as a result of the feedback he got on his last speech.
So is it the same speech? I'm just curious.
It's the same
The same
speech,
but in a new
with
light.
the, just,
After the
refined,
feedback.
and yes,
I
correct,
see.
because we're learning how to hear and apply,
Inclusion.
incorporate feedback.
You get a second chance.
Jean just did an So Dan has been a Toastmaster since 2011.
11.
He has served a variety of roles in this club. He's been the treasurer, he's been the vice president of education, he's been the vice president of membership, and of course, he's our current president, which is really great. Dan's speech is, well, let's just talk a little bit about Dan. Dan has a job where he's normally it's a financial type of job. He's an accountant, he works to work with books and financial statements and things like that, but he also has a property development project management angle to his job, and sometimes he has to work with mailboxes.
Right.
I think the way we put it last time was things in the real world, like getting
Yeah.
mailboxes and stuff.
Yeah, sometimes he has to deal with real things in the world, like mailboxes, and how, yes. Is that enough to get you started?
That's plenty.
Okay. All right, so now that you're very curious, let's go ahead and warmly welcome Dan Craig.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. I'm going to talk tonight about installing mailboxes in a subdivision. Now, I know you're getting pretty excited hearing that. Some of you are leaning forward thinking, boy, it's been a long time since I heard a good mailbox story. But let me tell you, when I tell you the whole adventure, all the challenges that I had to face, you'll know that you've heard a hero's journey, starring me as the hero. Let's get to the mailboxes. Installing mailboxes in a subdivision just requires 3 fairly simple steps. Step 1 is contact the United States Post Office, the USPS. That contact, send him a plat map, ask him to go out to the property, tell us where the mailboxes should be. Step 2, once you got the specs from USPS, is to hire a contractor to pour the little concrete slab that's required. That can be a little more challenging than you might think, and we'll talk about that later. Step 3, get back to USPS. The slab's in, please come put in the mailboxes. In their lingo, they're called CBUs, cluster box units. We all know what a mailbox looks like. In April of 2018, Part 5 of our subdivision was just about wrapped up on its development work, and it was time for me to do the 3 steps of getting the mailboxes installed. Step 1, I tried to contact our USPS fellow that we'd worked with all along. His name was Bill, a good old guy, always very reliable, but my world was pretty much rocked when I found out that he had retired since the last time that we'd spoken. As you can imagine, there's a little bit of bureaucracy that can be involved in post office. It took me weeks to find the right guy, to have him send me the right form. By the way, Bill never used forms at all. Have him get out there to look at the location, tell me everything went. So I had started all this in June, but it was really August by the time we had it nailed down. But we're at part 2, time to hire that contractor. But I couldn't find a contractor. They were all busy. The weather was great. They were doing big jobs. Nobody wanted to come out and do this little slab of concrete. I called everybody I could think of. No dice. Finally, my boss said, get back to the company that put in the streets and the sidewalks. Tell them we need them to do this little job. They kind of owe us because we gave them this huge job. So I contacted them. They were just as busy as everybody else. They were just as unenthusiastic as everybody else about the possibility, but they didn't exactly say no. So I sent them my little plat map and I crossed my fingers. This is an extract of our plat. There's a sidewalk paralleling the street. There's a perpendicular walk. At that intersection is where the slab's going to go, and there's the specs, the size of the slab. Then it began a period where we had to hassle them in subtle little ways. Texts, emails, phone calls. Please get out there and pour that slab. They finally got it done in October. So time is marching on, but step 2 is complete. Time for step 3 to get that USPS out there to install the boxes. I called my new contact, John, and it turns out he was no longer involved. So the new contact was Mike. He was a good guy. I felt that he avoided being disingenuous as compared to the previous guy, John. He had a good sense of humor. He wanted to help. I gave him the specs. He gave me a new form to fill out because obviously the first form had gotten lost. But we were all set. He traveled out to the site. He had his boxes on his truck. He ready to go. And then he sent me a text with a chilling image attached. It turns out that at the location of the mailbox slab and the sidewalks was a utility right-of-way. The phone company was out there trenching in their lines. They got to the concrete and they trenched straight through it. So we're back to step 2. Have to get the slab repaired before we can install the mailboxes. But at this point, it's the middle of November. People don't pour concrete in November. It's time to rest for the winter and then get back to it again in March. We start hassling our guys. Please get out there and pour that slab. But it was the wettest spring almost in history in Iowa. Just rained and rained and rained. It was just a sea of mud out there. Nobody could do any kind of work. Finally, it dried out enough and the slab was poured by the end of May. Whew. Okay, step 2's done. Step 3, I get back to my good buddy, Mike, and I said, Mike, it's time to install those CBUs. And he called me back and he said, I went out there and I've got bad news. They repaired the slab, but the size that they made it was 4 feet by 5 feet. I've got to have a minimum of 4 feet by 7 feet. Can you get them to add 2 more feet? Back to step 2. I contacted the contractor, said, could you please get out there and do this? And they said, sure. But they didn't get to it right away. You wouldn't expect that. Finally, hassling back and forth, July 25th, it turns out they've got it. On to step 3. I said, Mike, we've got a 4-foot by 7-foot slab out there. Go put in those CBUs. And he said, yes, it looks good, but I have to go on vacation now. Well, I didn't expect things to go smoothly, even at that point. But after 2 weeks, he was back from vacation. He went out, he actually installed the CBUs. It was done. Those 3 steps on paper look like they ought to take a week or 2. In this case, it took 15 months. I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. And I realized I had an epiphany of sorts, that we just have to determine the location before the development work gets started. The engineer draws it in, then it gets poured, the little mailbox slab gets poured along with the sidewalks. Then it's all just automatic. We'll see how it works out. This next spring when we do part 6, what could go wrong?
Thank you, Dan. I saw some changes. You guys, everybody saw that before?
Yeah.
You guys, did you see some changes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, that's what we're trying to do here, very good. So let's have our timer time 2 minutes for us. And you have those little pieces of paper here. This is an opportunity for you to just give some feedback. Let's see, do we need some pens? Whose pen is this? Can we-
With a box.
Okay,
There's some in the,
Ken, you're a guest, so you get to use that one.
Do.
Oh, and, some more on the box.
Here's one if I can have a pen.
Okay, got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Time's up, okay. Timer, did our speaker qualify?
No, he doesn't qualify.
Okay. Still very funny, still very, very funny. But then, of course, it's not only what you say, but it's, can you say it in the time that you're given? That's what this is about. Okay, very good. Well, we're going to switch our order just a little bit because it gives our evaluator a little more time to complete his evaluation. Madam Table Topics, are you okay to
I'm ready.
start? Okay. Let's please welcome up our Table Topics Master for the evening, Janet Evertson.
Okay, we have the subject of teachers
Oh, great.
is the theme for today. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home. We're going to have a choice of about 5 different topics which you may choose, and then I'll read that to you, and you can take 30 seconds to think about what you might say in 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, who's our first volunteer? It's an easy one.
I'll go.
Okay, Dee. Okay, here you go. Pick one, I'll read it. I'm gonna read it for you. Okay, who is your favorite teacher and tell us why? How did they help guide you? All right.
Oh, of course. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home. Actually, my favorite teacher was also the hardest teacher at the time. When I was in high school, I took calculus, trigonometry, all the math courses. I studied going to college to become an engineer, like a computer type guy. His name was Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, I think at one time in his life was a professional wrestler. It's according to rumor, but we think there was some truth to that. And, you know, if you've taken calculus or algebra, you have to get up in front of the room and do these differential equations on the board. You have to put all this stuff out. And, you know, it was terror standing up in front of the class to begin with. But also because Jerry Reed, you know, he was kind of built like this. great big guy. And, you know, I don't think they do this anymore in school. You would probably have a problem. You'd be, you know, doing something not right. Since he did professional wrestling, he knew all these little things to make you go, he'd come around, you know, and he'd take his finger and he'd go right in here, you know, you go down like this. You know, and the thing is, he just looked at you and, you know, yes, sir, no, sir. But I have to say in the long run, though, that it was a very valuable asset because it taught me a lot of good, you know, study habits and how to deal with things like standing up here and talking in front of people. Because if you could go up, anybody here take Algebra 2 or Calculus, you had to get up on the blackboard and you had to write all these differential equations and all this stuff down, you know, and you had to do the whole thing by heart. And of course, Mr. Reed's there, you know, and he's kind of looking at you. And as I said, remember, he did a professional wrestling gig. And that's my story.
Thank you.
I get a prize?
Yes. Okay, we have quite a few left here for the next group, so. Who is?
Maybe one of our guests wants to give it a
Yeah,
try.
it'll be fun. Let's do it.
Come on, Randy.
You like it, this one.
Pick one. And if it's the bad one, I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We're saving that for somebody. Very lucky.
Someone you don't like. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Oh,
Jean.
you did it. You picked it.
Oh, I did?
You can handle it.
Oh.
What's your most humiliating memory of school? And how did you recover? Or did you?
Oh. Well, if I want to stand the most humiliating. I never had humiliating.
Never. Go with
30
first.
seconds, thanks.
Okay. So I did have a little incident. I used to talk in junior high. Maybe you all remember junior high. In class. So what happened eventually is the teacher called the principal because I just talked too much. I don't talk as much as I used to talk when I was in class. That seemed like an appropriate place to talk because I wasn't really that interested in what the teacher was talking about. So I would talk to people in my environment. Well, the teacher, I can't remember the teacher exactly, but she called the principal and I was sent down to the principal's office. And this is, what year is this? This is probably 63, 1963. And at that time, they had a paddle. The paddle was about this big, round, with a big handle on it. And it was fine, but it had holes in it to speed it up. So when he whacked, the air didn't stop it. And then I was sitting down and he said, okay, get up. And I got up and he said, bend over. And I bent over. And that was an experience I'll never forget. It'll go with me to the grave because it hurt.
Oh.
But they did that in those days.
Yep.
I did not know that. I thought it was just a thing they do, but it turned out that later on it would become unacceptable. So I feel good about that. That my children didn't have to handle that.
Okay, then, the toughest one's over, so piece of cake here. Anybody else?
Are you up? Did you raise your hand?
I didn't.
No.
Yeah, he's gonna do it next
They
time,
don't-
but
they don't
we
let
got
you-
this
He's the guy-
one ready to
They don't let
come
me
up
know
now.
what wants to.
Really? Okay.
Doing it in Spanish.
Sick. All right. Tell about a teacher who taught you the most important life lesson, whether pleasant or not. And what was that lesson?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, guests. Actually, we know if anyone asks you about, do you remember a teacher, your teacher name, any teacher, you will remember the name who basically taught you a lesson. So if I ask any one of you, do you remember any guest, any teacher who taught you before? You will definitely know the name because he taught you something pleasant. For me, I would basically recall someone who taught me English. I was in high school. Because that was in he moved to Jordan from Iraq because of the Middle East things. And then in the 90s, I was in the high school. He taught me. The things that he taught me is to work hard and to believe in your dream. He moved to England when he was 44 and he pursued his PhD. Before, I knew him 10 years and then he moved too. And now he's an entrepreneur. He got the citizenship. He had a well-known center to teach English. So he told me that dream, work hard, and you'll achieve. Thank you.
Okay, next.
We're already
Rita.
out of time.
Oh, we are? We got one more?
Well,
Let's see, I'm just looking here, I'm
We got time
looking.
for one more.
One more.
Let me do one more.
Saved by the bell. Okay. Which teacher did you dislike most and why? Have you forgiven them? Why or why not?
Thanks, God. Too many.
Madam Topic Master, honored guests, viewers at home. You know, the last part of that question is interesting because I never think about having to forgive someone because that's who they were. You can't forgive someone. I mean, just think about anyone you dislike. That's who they are. I accepted who they were. I remember there was a particular teacher in 11th grade. It was possibly the worst experience of my life. Have you ever seen an artist named, it looks like Gahan, it looks like Gahan Wilson.
Don Wilson.
And it's John Wilson. I don't know if it's really a man or a woman, but it's John Wilson, and they put these very, now like The Far Side, they put these very strange looking people. This woman looked like she was out of that cartoon. Came to a point at the head and proceeded outwards to her body. And it was, the subject matter was geometry. And I was okay at math, not really good, but I learned absolutely nothing in that class. Just the way she presented it gave me no interest whatsoever in the subject of geometry. I think I got a D, but I remember just filling note pages of scribbles, of doodles in my, and I remember her nasally voice. She had these little teeny glasses, and she had a nasally voice, and she'd teach us in an ununderstandable method with no, I don't know if I even talked to her personally once. She was so disconnected from us. So that was someone I did not feel I could forgive, because that's just the way she was. Madam Topic Master.
I believe that's all we have time for. We're gonna turn it over to Carmen,
We should, yeah.
So
and she will tell us which topic speaker is qualified. Carmen?
All of them. Be ready, Adi, and Ben.
Okay. And now we are to vote. Okay, I'd like to call up Jean Symington
And
Craig.
I'm gonna call you up, okay? Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Now I'd like to thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. We'll have our general evaluator come up and who will oversee both of our evaluators this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening again. We're going basically to start with the dance speech evaluation. So please help me in welcoming Veda.
All right.
Mr. General Evaluator, thank you so much. Thank you, Dan, for an excellent speech. Dan is a well-seasoned Toastmasters. He's very comfortable. He uses gestures. He uses vocal variety. He uses movement about the stage. And he also tries to track it on the camera that he's using. Let's start with the beginning of the speech. The beginning of the speech, I'm going to be tough on Dan here because Dan is such a great Toastmaster. I'm going to bring out more of the criticisms than you would for a new member. Dan started the speech by not bringing certain things, which made my job harder, but luckily Jean was able to fill in with a substitute form. Also, Jean did not have a proper introduction, so that seemed disorganized. And it led to the feeling that creeped into the speech. There was a little bit of feeling of disorganization. In the beginning, Dan seemed to be rushed. His clarity was actually less than the first time he gave the speech, because he was trying to fit that speech into a smaller space of time. However, the middle of the speech, Dan got going. He forgot about his faux pas. He got more comfortable with the audience. He had great eye contact. He was using gestures. His vocal variety was good. My suggestion before that he could do something even more outrageous or emphatic was not taken up, but for what he did, it was excellent. The overall tone of it was excellent. The gestures were excellent. The audience awareness, the comfort level seemed to be all excellent. I think there was a little problem with audience interest. The subject matter itself is a little bit hard to always get people excited about mailboxes, but he did it with humor. The thing is, though, he could have drawn us in with a little bit more emotion. For instance, have you ever felt so frustrated that something that should have taken 1 week takes a year? And that would have also been vocal variety. But overall, Dan is a polished speaker. He makes us feel comfortable because he's comfortable. And we got to feel what he was going through because he's so interested in his own subject. I liked also that he improved he used the feedback to really improve. He used a color photograph, which was one of the suggestions, so that it would be clearer. And in general, it was for a third speech in Pathways, I thought it was more than adequate for what was called for. So thank you, Dan. Thank you, General Evaluator.
Thank you. And now we're going to hear from TM Arts,
Table
Table Topics Evaluation. Please help me in welcoming TM Arts.
Thank you, Toastmasters. I will, under special dispensation, do from my seat here. We had 4 table topics deliver speakers. First, Dee spoke about who was his favorite teacher, and he opened up with a very succinct opening. He said, favorite teacher was also my hardest teacher. He gave us a very vivid description of Mr. Reed, a suspected wrestler, and Mr. Reed's behavior in managing his class, including doing some sort of Vulcan death grip on recalcitrant students. His gestures were excellent. His humor was built into the thing. He concluded with, "That's my story." And I felt that the conclusion didn't match up to the rest of the speech. The conclusion could have been, Mr. Reed was somebody you did not want to tangle with. He could have used Mr. Reed's image to have a gripping conclusion. Randy went next about the humiliation, most humiliating experience and how he recovered from it. And he gave us the reason that he was sent to the principal's office, the talking in class, and the bend over whack or wax with this big, well-described paddle. I thought that the conclusion could have been some statement about how you didn't actually address the issue of how you recovered from it.
How I recovered.
And
We're not sure we did recover.
Maybe he hasn't.
I still feel it. I still
that
see
would
the
have been a
scars.
strong conclusion to say, this is not something you recover from. Adi spoke next. He talked about the life lesson of work hard and dream. The only suggestion I have for Adi, which I think it could have been really interesting to hear what the dream is that he instilled in you, or that he helped you to foster. Veda spoke last. This teacher he disliked most was this lady who had a triangular sort of a shape, reminiscent of Gay and Wilson cartoons. And he had an excellent conclusion that this was not something to be forgiven because it was in her nature of how she was as a person. It wasn't something that was voluntary on her part. That's my report.
And now,
Let's ask our timer
We're qualified.
which evaluator is qualified.
evaluators qualified, Veda and Art.
Thank you.
Okay. So another round of,
Vote.
okay. All right, here we go.
Vote for best evaluator.
All right. So now with my part to evaluate the evaluators.
Well, first, we're gonna follow the agenda there. You see, we're gonna have all the reports first, and then you're the best part. Okay, so you get the.
So first we're going to hear from the timer report.
All right.
For Dan's speech, 7 minutes 49 seconds. Table topics,
It qualifies, doesn't
No,
it?
39?
40.
40.
Oh,
40.
table topics, D, 2 minutes with 1 second. Randy, 2 minutes 4 seconds. Ari, 1 minute 43 seconds. Veda, 2 minutes 23 seconds. And for the evaluators, Veda, 3 minutes 28 seconds, and Art, 3 minutes 20 seconds.
All right, thank you. Now with the grammarian.
Grammarian report.
disingenuous.
Don't act disingenuous about that. You know.
Good evening. So with the two roles, I found it difficult to really complete a grammarian's report. However, I did notice that Dan used the word of the day in his speech, which is very difficult to work into a speech since it's not pre-planned. He also used jargon, the word CBU, which is now burned into our brains after 2 speeches, CBU. What it means, I've already forgotten, but I know it's mailboxes. The second person that I paid attention to was Art. In his evaluation, he used the words vivid and recalcitrant, and then he said, he used the words Vulcan death grip
Yeah,
and related it to a gripping conclusion,
yeah.
which is
Pretty good.
double entendre. Other than that, I was somewhat asleep on the job, so forgive me. That is my report for this evening.
Okay.
And now with the accountant, he sent me an incoming TMJ.
Okay, thank you. My report, I had one Dan had one false start. Started a sentence, started it again. D, let me count. 2 ums, 10 you knows, 3 ands, 1 tongue click. I think it's dry in here. I mean, I think we're all trying to salivate and comes out as a tongue click. But and you know is a big one for you. Randy, 4 ahs, 3 ums, 1 you know, 3 so's, and 2 ands. You know, you run the sentence
I
together.
did a you know.
Pardon?
I did a you know.
You did a you know. You did a you know. It was almost okay. I think you said you know how that is, but so it's kind of quasi.
I get my son on it all the time.
Do you really?
Yeah, he's like a
Ooh.
you know person
Oh.
from Berkeley. You know.
Dee's kind of a you know person.
Yeah, twice in every sentence.
All right, so Adi had 3 ums and 2 so's, and I was thinking, I hope that English guy who taught you English wasn't teaching you filler words.
Okay.
Like ums and so's and ahs. Veda, I had 1 so, 2 ands. Again, the salivation, dry mouth, tongue click, a couple of those, and then 1 false start. And that's my report.
Thank you. Hard to hear some jokes.
Yeah,
Please help me in what I D.
yeah, I have a couple good jokes here.
Yeah, we got the kind of jokes we have to.
Doctor comes into a patient's room And the patient says, I keep seeing this insect going around. Doctor says, don't worry, that's just a bug going around. These are puns.
Okay, yeah, these are puns, all right.
Fish. What does a fish say when it runs into a wall? Damn.
Is that it? Okay.
All right.
Good. Protocol. You can, yep. All right. Okay,
And now it's my part to evaluate the evaluator.
3 to 4, and you get 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay. But first of all, before you time, I would like to tell you a story, like a word from Hudayfa, like the member. He got job in Amazon, so he moved to Seattle.
Oh, Hudayfa has?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, he moved to Seattle.
So he told me like, this is because Toastmasters. Because when I went to Seattle and I did the interviews, he liked like many points has because it's all about table topics and having like the conversation with the HR and the team there.
Oh,
So he says hi to you and
Great.
That's great.
and he also he recommends Toastmasters to everyone.
Great, that's great.
Excellent.
So let's give ourselves a big round of applause.
Yeah.
Bill Gates.
Wow,
All right,
that's awesome.
it's my first time to evaluate the evaluators. And I will start with Veda. Veda, first of all, thank you for a great evaluation. I like how much you were so prepared, you put everything in sequence, and you were honest to a certain level. It was like slice and dice, but we like it from time to time because sometimes we need evaluation basically to improve ourselves more and more. In evaluation, we evaluate the structure and the content. For me, what I like, how much you slice and dice every part, but moving from part to part, I think it was not smooth for me to go through your evaluation. For me, like to grasp the whole evaluation. You encouraged him a lot. I liked when you basically told about the papers because you mentioned that, okay, last minute I got my evaluation form. Even though, for me, you have also to thank them because they put extra effort to do it, like it was last minute thing. The other than that, it was really great. Thank you so much. For arts, you're memorizing every speaker in details, and you encourage us to improve ourselves. So you give detailed points to improve. However, I'd like to hear more about the vocal variety, the eye contacts, because you're always evaluating the content. So next time I would like to see more about evaluating like the vocal variety, the eye contacts, seizing the stage. So for me this is, and thank you so much. Those are my points to the evaluators. And what else should I do now?
You can be done.
Okay. We started late, so we should stick to the time, the start time, and I think it was a great meeting. So please,
Great.
help in welcoming
Thank you.
the Toastmasters of the day. We usually evaluate the Toastmasters of the day.
No, we don't.
Okay.
We don't. We just evaluators. Yeah. Wasn't that great?
Yeah.
First time evaluating evaluators. And so, and I know Randy, you said, we evaluate everything that moves.
Yeah.
We try to just, and so it's a more abstract exercise to evaluate evaluators. He just really stepped up. Excellent, that's just exactly correct. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, so we are now, and I just want to mention too, because we have 3 of our other members who are out taking classes, required classes right now. It's kind of a little bit of a hiccup, so we're a little, low on our troops, but they will be coming back. One of them is actually learning how to be a birth partner. You gotta make sure you do that. So anyway, just wanted to mention that. So I'm really proud of everyone here for stepping in and covering our bases when we have a little bit of a shortfall. Let's do the winners, the awards. How about we'll start with table topics. Winner of our table topics, Jean.
Thank you.
Okay, and, thank you, the props. Our best evaluator, happens to be Art tonight. Yay, Art. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh, yeah, Dan.
Did you get all those? Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you very much. We've had a very good meeting. And I will go ahead and call back up our president, Dan Craig.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you, everyone. It was a fun meeting tonight, as usual. I think what we'll do first, before we wrap up, is to ask our guests to tell us one thing they liked about the meeting tonight. Randy? You can go ahead, man.
Come on. Stand up, man.
I like the honesty and the truthfulness and the humanity of everybody's comments to each other and the kindness.
Sure.
Well, have fun at Bali.
Yeah.
And Keenan, could you tell us one thing you liked?
Sure. I liked that when delivering constructive criticism, everybody started with a compliment and said nice things, and then transitioned into areas of improvement. And I thought that's a nice delivery.
We hope you'll come back and visit us again. You're not going to Bali.
I'm not.
Too bad.
Evaluating is really central to Toastmasters. That's the way that we improve. We don't have an instructor, we evaluate each other, and that's how we help each other progress. It's really a great skill that we learn, and it helps us to become better communicators. Before we wrap up, I'm going to mention that we had an officers meeting tonight. We spent most of our time talking about the art walk booth that we're going to have on Friday. We'll be there starting at 6 o'clock. I think Aaron and Dee are going to set up around 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're going to man the booth from 6 to 9. And I think we have all the logistics worked out. If you are not one of the volunteers, feel free to come on and help us out anytime during that time slot, or just to say hi. I think it'll be fun and it'll be good exposure for us in the community.
Are we gonna be in the same place we were last time? Do we have?
I think we'll be in a busier place than we were.
So we have a
last time.
place already mapped out, or I'll talk to Aaron.
Aaron will have it worked
Yeah, I
out.
think it was the original place we were supposed to be last time before we moved.
It should be that main walk
We'll find
running,
it.
It's the main walk right in the middle,
Somebody's shown me.
where we went right in the middle.
but Aaron's gonna come to your shop at 5.
At 5 on Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And you're sending them homeless and stuff, right? Oh, no,
No,
tomorrow, Tuesday.
What?
Never
I
mind.
moved mine.
But Janet's taking stuff home tonight.
right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I think we got the logistics worked out. We're looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting some more people to visit our meetings. Are there any other items of business that anybody wants to attend to? Jean?
Anything about dues, since we're in September?
October 1st is the beginning of a 6-month period for paying dues. We have to collect all those dues in September. Our treasurer is Carmen,
Yes.
so everybody should be seeing Carmen after the meetings and
Please.
handing over the money. It's, as you recall, it's $54 for the 6 months. The other thing you want to do right at the end of the meeting is talk to Jean, who's the VP of Education. She does the scheduling for speeches. We definitely want to have a continuing line of speeches going week by week, so please talk to her. The third thing is, once we adjourn, then please stay and help straighten up the room. Is there anything else? Well, great meeting, everyone. See you next week. No, see you Friday at Art Walk.
Yeah.